We're having today Ben Buckner. He is a grain analyst at the AgResource Company from Chicago. Today he is speaking from London, and he is going to share a little bit of market projections and opinions, and right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe and give us a like if you are liking our job. So Ben, how are you today?
I'm doing well. As you can see, it's very British, the weather outside, so it's raining, but other than that, cannot complain. And how are you?
I'm doing great. So I would like you to share some of the projections for corn and soybean output in the United States by the AgResource Company.
Yeah, sure. First, thanks for having me on the channel, Lewis. But our projections for production are not that different from the USDA. We think that acres will be pretty much right where those are forecasted. We don't think the FSA August data is an event at all. We think that will catch up over time. And as for yields, we are a little higher in soybeans, so a 54 bushel an acre yield by the final count. And in corn, we are at 181. We think there's potential to raise this, but there's some renewed uncertainty given recent and upcoming dryness, the major storm damage in Iowa and Illinois, parts of Indiana even. But we are seeing crop health improvement in a lot of other places, including today it's raining in Nebraska, and conditions in Wisconsin and Kentucky have only gotten better. We're even hearing where harvest has started across the far south, yields have exceeded expectations by just a little bit. So in the end, a lot of that damage in the central Midwest will be offset. So record yields, near record large production, and so large crops will be harvested in the next 45, 60 days.
Do you see a potential for possible reductions on projections as the weather worsens during August?
We don't think so. We're open to it. I think a lot of it will depend on the weather pattern, really in the final days of August and early September. And so it's really difficult to play this game. The probability forecasts are improving. It does look like we'll have the return of something close to normal rainfall, no early freeze in the month of September. And it's particularly interesting now because a lot of this will hinge upon Gulf storm activity. We know we're going to have a very active hurricane season given Atlantic Ocean warmth. We're already seeing some depressions that have probabilities or likelihoods to make it to the southeastern U.S. and up into the Midwest potentially. Our climate guidance says that we're starting the season right now. So the placement of rainfall and intensity of rainfall in the Midwest really probably comes down to how the tropics perform. Again, we think that wetter pattern does evolve eventually, but fine-tuning those details is probably going to be the game for adjusting yields from here on out. But we think the odds of downward adjustments is low, but we do need to see rain come back to the Midwest in the next 14 days.
And in terms of market reaction, do you see the best upside for corn or for soybeans?
I think it's probably soybeans. There's just a lot going against corn, I believe. And most of that really centers on the lack of demand growth as we're getting these USDA yields and acreage forecasts updated. So, a yield change in corn, really on both sides, whether it's higher or lower, it has a lot less of an impact on corn stocks. Whereas in soybeans, because we do have demand growth, some of this will come down to politics, but we know China is buying lots of soybeans and will be buying lots of soybeans, really through the foreseeable future. And so, a bushel lost or half a bushel change on soybeans will have a lot more market impact. So, and in the background, we just have really negative seasonal trends for Northern Hemisphere grain markets as a whole into the first half of September. So we think corn will be the downside leader, if it's not wheat, actually, in the next couple of months.
Well, we can say that if you are in London, you are in the center of the world. So how would you analyze the prospects for the US dollar from there?
It's something that we're actually kind of working on now. It's been obviously kind of very weak in the last couple of weeks. A lot of money pouring into the euro, and that really determines the value of the dollar, just the way that it's weighted and structured. But also where the speculative community, their position in the dollar now is such that unless they put on a new record short position in the US dollar index, we're probably close to some kind of bottom. And so I think that is interesting. Funds position in the dollar compared to where the value is now. So I don't think we're looking at sub 90 in the US dollar index, but we could test that. But generally speaking, Louis, I think we'll be forming some kind of low in the next couple of weeks.
And what can you tell us about the European wheat harvest?
It's very mixed, I think. Clearly, France had a very bad year, and their footprint on the world market has really given some life to the Euronext wheat futures and French cash wheat prices. But the UK has also done very poorly, or as expected. It was as bad as we thought it would be. But we're also seeing some places like the Baltics and even Germany where yields have been a little better than expected. So I think just this morning, German wheat production is projected at close to 22 million tons. That's up a little bit on the year. So it's going to be very mixed. I think at the end, the USDA will raise total EU wheat production 1 or 2 million tons. And so it will end up being close to expectations. But we do have these regional fragments. So France, very bad. The UK, very bad. But, can that be offset by, Eastern, Northern Europe having better production?
It seems that both wheat and corn have a lot of supply right now.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the biggest change in the grain markets, probably more so than U.S. weather, has been the evolution of Russian wheat yields. So the one place in the world that we were really concerned about having, a potential shortage even was Russia. We knew it was periodically very hot and dry during the winter wheat growing season. Early yield estimates or the first harvest data in Russia was very, very bad. And you could, it was too early to do anything, but you could extrapolate, a wheat crop of 60 million tons at that point when wheat was 10% harvested. But it's gone up every day since then. And so now we're looking at yields at about 70% harvested that are well above last year. Doing those same extrapolations, the Russian wheat crop now could be 84 million tons, close to record large. And so since wheat no longer has a real bull story, that was kind of the only structural bullish pillar in the grain markets, and that's been taken out. So you are exactly right, Louis. It's oversupplied for sure.
And Russia is a heck of a new player.
Yes, yeah. It's they are gunning for new markets, and they're putting a lot of effort into getting into the Western Hemisphere. Places like the Caribbean, even in Mexico, parts of South America. And so as long as weather cooperates in Russia, I think that they. The plan is to expand their share of world grain trade.
Ben, I really appreciate your time. Is there something else would you like to add?
I don't think so. The next big thing, I think, the markets will ebb and flow. There will be lots to talk about, but it's really South American weather that's going to determine a trend change. And so saying that, we are looking at the development of La Nina, and that usually goes poorly for Argentine rainfall, but that's something that is not an issue now. Could be in December, but that's sort of where our sights are in terms of big picture changes.
That was Ben Buckner from the AgResource Company. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis.